everyone, and thank you for participating to this session of Future Leaders Forum, which is dedicated to impact investing. We have the pleasure today to have as a guest speaker Patrick Goodman, one of the co-founders of Impact Investing, which is one of the leading impact finance specialists providing advisory and also third-party fund management services since 2007. And also counting more than 15 members. Patrick has also a long-lasting experience in establishing, development, and designing impact funds and finance blended vehicles, and also having a previous background in investment banking sector, having worked for banks such as JP Morgan or Citibanks. So thank you again, Patrick. And first of all, I just would like to know which is the difference between sustainable and impact investing. Thank you.
Thank you, Angelica, and well, thanks for this invitation. It's great to be able to share some of our views about the overall consulting business in which we're in, and something which is dear to our hearts, sustainable and impact investing. Impact investing is really part of the overall spectrum of investing. And you see here from the left side, traditional investing, to the right side, philanthropy. Traditional investing, we know all about. It's basically shareholder return first, with no aspiration to meet any social, environmental impact or any ESG considerations, E, environmental, S, social, G, governance aspirations. Responsible investing is going a bit into the direction of taking into account ESG criteria, and sustainable investing is really about investing essentially in listed securities with an ESG component. So it does take into consideration some social and some environmental aspects, some governance aspects, whereas impact investing are investments which have the intention to create a positive social environmental impact alongside financial returns. So all these terms, I would say, are important, and let me take you through this aspect. And all these terms are really important when considering impact investing. The first is the intentionality. The investments are made with the intention of creating a positive social or environmental impact. It's not good enough to analyze after the fact, what does my investment have as an impact? It's really when you create either your fund or your project, which impact am I seeking? Some will want to have a social impact, others environmental impact, and even on the environmental side, is it to get carbon credits? Is it to have an impact on the ecosystem overall? Is it to invest in renewable energy, to participate to energy efficiencies, etc.? There are many different projects or impacts which you can aim for. And what's really key, and you have here the sign of the SDGs below that, and really what's key is what sustainable development goals are you aiming for? And here again, there's no good or bad. Everybody has its own goals. For example, microfinance funds, so funds investing in microfinance or lending to micro entrepreneurs, either directly or through financial institutions, may have no poverty as a goal, may have gender equality as a goal, may have decent work and economic growth as a goal. Other funds, such as climate funds, may have 13 climate action as a goal, etc. So really, impact funds all should have these SDGs as an objective, as an aspiration in one form or the other. If I go back to what constitutes impact investment, so the intentionality. The second aspect is really creating a strategy. How do you get to this impact? And the third one is actually measuring and managing and measuring. You can't manage if you can't measure. So it's all about metrics. That's one of the criticisms which traditional finance sometimes makes about impact, oh, it costs to do all this analysis. Well, yes, it does cost to some extent if you want to be able to measure what impact you have. It's no longer good enough just to say, oh, because I'm doing microfinance or because I'm investing in renewable energy, it's good enough. Now, some may be perfectly happy with just the idea of providing microfinance funding, but other investors may actually want to know what impact does it have? What impact does it have on the empowerment of women, for example? It's not just good enough to say, there are 80% women borrowers in my funds, but what's the quality of these investments which are made? So this is just to give you, a very high level view of what impact investing is all about. And our company Innpact has been involved in impact investing. It wasn't known as such, right at the beginning. Although, the name of our company Innpact was a bit of a play on impact investing, and INN being for innovative. But that's what really we are there for. We're purely dedicated to impact investing and not just responsible or sustainable or ESG investing.
Patrick, you've talked about goals. So you set goals, and I think that, of course, they are very achieving, very challenging. But I would like to know which is the role of consulting and how in reflecting these clients' goals and values.
Yeah, very important question, because sometimes consultants, may not be needed in the sense that the promoter of the project may have all the ideas and how to get about it. But we've seen, and that's how I get to know Gagana at the time, is you need consultants to be able to help out in the various steps of the development of your impact project. One of the very first steps when you have an impact project is to be able to analyze the gap. What's the missing gap in the market? What's the requirement of the market? Is there the need of a specific financing? And if I take the example of a fund we helped launch, was a fund investing in microfinance in Africa, what's the gap? Is the market covered by the local actors? Is it covered by the development finance institutions? Is it covered by other institutions? And we discovered, with the help of those consultants at the time, that there was a gap. Now, once there is a gap, is there a space for the investments to be made? Because having a structure investing and analyzing and measuring the impact on the ground has a certain cost. And is there the space to create this product? And so I think it's very important to have consultants on the ground, as well as structuring consultants, to be able to identify where there is a need and where a role can be played. And more, I think consultants, traditional consultants, or ourselves, more specialist consultants, are bringing this knowledge and this expertise in impact investing, and be able to identify what impact is created or is meant to be created through these projects. So it's very important that all kinds of consultants gear themselves up to responding not just to the needs of the investees, the needs of the people on the ground, but also to the challenges of our society. And as we see, one of the biggest challenges is energetic independence. And I think it's key that consultants help in developing those solutions, either directly or through funds or through holding companies, to go into that direction. So not just for the environment, but also for our independence, as we see with the situation in Ukraine.
So of course, you're talking about challenges that usually comes within opportunities, and which are the main opportunities you can see in the market in this sense?
Well, the clear opportunities are certainly in climate action, and talked about, in energetic independence is one aspect, investing in renewables around the world, whether it's in Europe or elsewhere, whether it's in solar or wind energy. but also in investing in the biodiversity. So there are so many different fronts where we can have and must have an impact on these different levels. And I think it's up to each and every sponsor or consultant to choose its chosen actions. And there's plenty of space, I think, for everybody, plenty of opportunities. And the good news is that investors are really keen to invest in these themes, whether we're talking about private individuals, but even more importantly, institutional investors, pension funds, insurance companies especially, realize that they collectively need to invest in climate action just purely from a financial point of view. Now, of course, the delicate aspect about climate action is that each insurance company doesn't see the immediate impact of its investments. What difference does it make, even if a very large institution invests or not in fossil fuels? But I think people are realizing that on an overall basis, it has a definite impact. So I think consultants must also be made increasingly aware that they have an impact in the way they advise their clients, and to be able to show clients, what is the impact of the decisions and their investments. If we're talking just about fossil fuels, I fully realize that when you're an insurance company or any institutional investor, you've got to balance the social environmental impact with your financial returns. So I could fully understand institutional investors saying, well, I can't afford not to invest in fossil fuels because I've got an index to track. Now, the reality is, if those institutions don't dramatically change their way of operating and heavily invest in climate, in solar energy and wind farms or biogas, their stock value will go down at some point. Now, the question is when. But some investors are taking the bold decision to divest from fossil fuel companies despite the upside financial potential, just because they feel it's the right thing to do and to build for the future. And this movement is gaining momentum. And for example, the regulation is going to that direction. The SFDR, the Sustainable Finance Disclosure Regulation, is going to that direction. Just one last thing, we have to ensure that we don't have greenwashing in the process, because we know that some of these large investment banks have extremely efficient marketing teams, which presents one aspect, but then we must ensure through other types of consultants maybe, that what they're investing in is truly has a social environmental goal. And that's going to be the next challenge. So I think I really encourage consultants around the world to also train themselves, gain expertise into this field, because this kind of expertise and consciousness, I would say, is already, but will be increasingly become in high demand.
Also, referring to the fact you're talking about regulation and also many other technical aspects, I also would like to mention an important fact about Innpact, which is the first Luxembourg company to obtain a B Corp certification.
Yep. Thank you for mentioning it. At the time, we were looking for a label, a certification, which would not just comfort us that we were a social company, but which would be a governance tool for us to do better. And we found this B Corp certification. We are fortunate to be not best of the world, but best for the world, which is the way they put it, which I like it very much, in a number of items, which means that we go a step further than just being a normal B Corp. And we've used it as a tool. We realized at the time, through this certification, that we were weak on governance, for example. Weak on governance because the company was owned by Arnaud Gillin and myself as partners, and we were taking all the decisions in a way. We were, the board. And since then, we've decided to open up our capital. We now have 20 other shareholders of the company. We've decided to have an independent board member. We've opened up our management committee. And all this, not just to score points on the B Corp ladder, but really to ensure that we have people in the company participate more to what we're doing. It's not complicated, but it's lengthy because it goes really to the depth of what makes a responsible company. We're shifting from maximization of profit and maximization of shareholder value to optimization of shareholder value, considering environmental and social aspects, because those aspects will have an impact on the financing. Because people realize also that by putting social aspects and by putting environmental aspects at the forefront, there is a way to change the world. One last word about the role of consultants in this, and I think it's really important that you're around the table and those who will listen to the video later on really think about how you can help in the process by developing your expertise. Whether you work for a traditional consultant or anyone else, really being able to see how you can, develop your knowledge to be able to help others to go into that direction. And there are a wide array of consultants, and there is really a role to play for consultants in this direction.